Welcome to the Reawaken You podcast. I'm Kate Parker, your host, an empowerment coach, author, and entrepreneur who's on a mission to help women reclaim their power and live life on their own terms. Here we dive into real talk about breaking free from the patriarchy, embracing your authentic self, and stepping into your full potential. We explore how societal structures have held women back and how you can rise above them to create a life that's truly yours. Through the lens of authenticity, queen energy, and legacy, you will hear inspiring conversations, actionable strategies, and unfiltered insights to support you on your journey of self-discovery and empowerment. So if you're ready for honest, no bullshit empowerment with a touch of sass, you're in the right place. Let's reawaken your power together. Hey everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. First of all, I just want to say I'm really sorry that it's been a couple of weeks since I last did an episode, and that's just because of a whole lot of things going on, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. This episode is called The Paradox Pressure, and that's because there's a strange thing that happens when you let yourself off the hook. You begin the month planning to rest, reset and do less, and somehow you end up doing more, but not from a place of burnout or force, not from the pressure of performance or perfection. It comes from inspiration, from flow, and from that beautiful sweet spot where your soul leads and your calendar just doesn't. And that's exactly what happened to me this July. I had planned to take the month off from my business, not fully, just, a gentle scale back. After releasing the Reset edition of Reawaken Quarterly, I felt this deep internal need to honour my own words. I needed a pause, a breath, just a month without pressure. I was still going to do the podcast because that part still feels energising. But I gave myself permission to walk away from everything else just for a little while, just to be, to rest, winter style, and to follow my energy, not this giant checklist that I'm constantly creating for myself. But then the paradox of pressure revealed itself. You see, in the first 2 weeks of July, my rest period, it created a floodgate. Despite intending to do less, I ended up writing most of the entire next edition of Reawaken Quarterly. I framed up several bonus articles. I designed part of the layout. I created back-end assets that I've been putting off for months. I contacted people who I wanted to feature in the next edition. It was crazy, and I didn't plan to do any of this. I wasn't launching anything. I didn't open my laptop with an agenda. I just simply followed what felt inspiring, and that inspiration, once it was freed from pressure, it just astonished me. And when I let go of the mental noise of I should, and I suddenly had access to I want to. So we talk about stress like it's a productivity badge, and I've come to see it a little differently. Pressure, especially the invisible kind that we put on ourselves, I think it quietly chokes our creative instincts. It narrows our focus. It flattens our curiosity, and it loads everything we love with expectations. But what I've learned this month is that creativity is not a performance, it's a relationship. And like any relationship, it thrives when you feel safe, spacious, and seen. And when I took the pressure off myself, I made that space for inspiration to return. And return it did. It came in huge waves. Now let me be honest with you. This hasn't always been my truth. There was a time in my life where, I thrived under pressure. Give me a deadline and I would smash it out of the park. Challenge me with a high stakes moment and, I'd rise to it like a warrior queen. I used to wear busy like a badge, and I believed that I was at my best when the heat was on. And in some ways, that is still true. There's a kind of pressure that just activates me. It focuses me and sharpens me. It ignites me. But there's also this other kind, the kind that overwhelms, the kind that clogs to my intuition, and the kind that makes my entire nervous system just want to shut down. And I think this is the shadow side of pressure, the side that we just don't talk enough about. The world often praises people who perform well under pressure, but what we don't really explore is at what cost. That high functioning mode many of us enter into isn't always a sign of alignment. It's often survival, adrenaline, fear of failure, a trauma-informed productivity loop that says, if I don't perform, I'll fall behind or I won't be safe. And when that kind of pressure builds up, especially the self-imposed pressure, our body, it can start to rebel, and we get foggy, irritable, numb. I mean, I don't know about you, but I procrastinate. And it's not because we're lazy, but it's because we're emotionally overloaded. We try and do everything while feeling like we're just not doing enough. And eventually, the very energy that we thought was driving us forward starts to turn inward. And instead of breaking through, we can break down. So why does less pressure create more power? Well, I've come to understand, especially through July's unexpected creative overload, is that ease doesn't mean apathy, and rest isn't weakness, and less pressure doesn't mean less progress. In fact, when we remove the tight time frames, the perfectionism and the inner critic yelling not enough, we often access more vision and more intuition and more creative flow and more true output, the kind that actually matters, not just the kind that checks off all those little cute boxes on your list. Because when we're no longer in survival mode, we can access our true creative potential. Not the frantic kind, but that beautiful, sustainable, soul-driven kind. So anyway, during July, something else happened. The Reawaken You podcast, my quiet, soulful little passion project, it crossed over 1,000 downloads. And no, it's not a viral number, and it's not headline worthy, but it really does mean something quite deep within me. It means that my voice has reached 1,000 moments in time in someone's earbuds or in someone's life. And I started this podcast because I wanted my voice to be heard. I felt, during the 40 plus years of my life that I didn't have a voice, and I needed to do something brave to actually feel like I was heard. I knew I had things to say. I knew the right people would listen. At first I let it slide by. I didn't post, I didn't celebrate. And I told myself that it wasn't a big deal. But the truth is, something in me did want to celebrate. But also something else in me, it was terrified to. And so I paused and I got curious. And what I discovered was that tall poppy syndrome had been quietly working inside me. So for those of you outside New Zealand, tall poppy syndrome is the unspoken rule that says, don't shine too brightly, don't succeed too loudly, don't be too proud, don't get too big for your boots, because if you stand too tall, someone's going to come along and cut you down. And it's not just a cultural phrase, like it's a psychological pattern. One that teaches you to self-sabotage before others can, to shrink so that you are not seen as arrogant, to apologize for your success just in case it makes other people uncomfortable. This is not just a New Zealand thing. It's echoed all over the world in every culture where conformity is preferred over individuality, where celebration is mistaken for boasting, or where women especially are told to dim their brilliance in the name of being humble. And it creates this war within us. We want to be proud, but we don't want to be punished. We want to celebrate, but we don't want to be shamed. We want to rise, but we've been taught that rising makes us a target. And God, this is just exhausting. But this is what I'm learning, that it's our culture doesn't get to decide how big we're allowed to be. We're allowed to be proud, and we're allowed to grow tall. We are allowed to rise, and we're allowed to be seen and celebrated for no other reason than we've worked for it. When we shrink to make others comfortable, we teach our next generation to do the same. And I'm getting to the point where I refuse to pass that on. So anyway, after all that productivity, my pendulum swung again. Of course, life being life, it swung the other way. The last 2 weeks of July were a different season entirely. My corporate job, which I value deeply, it needed more of me, and there was a lot going on behind the scenes, and I had to redirect my energy into it. I could feel the universe saying, okay, so now this is where we balance the scales. And so I shifted gears. I focused, I worked, and in the background, I read books, I curled up in bed with a hot cup of tea, and I watched winter move through my windows. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't prolific, but it was necessary. I honoured the ebb after the flow, and I just let that be enough. So anyway, here we are in August, and I'm doing another experiment. I'm going to do it again. I'm taking the pressure off, no launch plan, no forced content, no expectations. Just my podcast because that still feels like joy. My inner rhythm because I'm learning to trust it. And the soft whisper of inspiration because that's where the real magic lives. I've got a lot on with work again this month, and it's a busy season at this time of year each year. But I'm not going to fight it. I'm just leaning in, and I'm letting the rest be led by what lights me up. So this here is my love note to the ones who flow differently like me. If you are listening to this and you feel like you're behind, or if you are exhausted by pressure to constantly be on, or if you're quietly celebrating something and you don't know how to share it, this is for you. You don't need to prove your worth with output. You don't need to apologize for your joy. You don't need to perform rest or force inspiration. You don't need to make yourself small so that others can feel tall. Let yourself ebb. Let yourself bloom. And let yourself be moved. And you might be surprised at what happens when you stop chasing momentum and start honoring your rhythm. Because maybe, just maybe, the version of you with less pressure and more presence is the most powerful one of all. So here's a couple of prompts for you just to reflect on. You can ask yourself, where am I still equating pressure with productivity? Or what would it look like to honour my own energy cycle this month? Or where have I made myself small out of cultural expectations, like I did? Or what would I do differently if I fully trusted inspiration to lead? Or what would it look like to celebrate myself fully without apology? The most magnetic version of you is not the one that's always producing. It's the one that's deeply aligned, the one who pauses, the one who listens, and the one who creates because she's inspired, not because she's afraid. This is how we celebrate joy in our voices and our growth. Anyway, that's it for today. I hope you all have a beautiful weekend, and here's to August. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Reawaken You podcast. If you loved today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a new conversation. And if you're looking for even more inspiration and actionable insights, sign up for the Reawaken Quarterly magazine at www.reawaken-coaching.com. Reawaken Quarterly is your go-to resource for staying empowered, inspired, and on track with your personal growth journey. Packed with thought-provoking articles, practical tools, and powerful stories, it's the perfect companion to have by your side as you reclaim your power and create the life you desire. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, keep stepping into your power and owning your journey.